It's time for Recipe of the Day. I've been talking a lot about doing beef roasts using the reverse sear method, but I know a lot of people like their traditional way of doing it where they sear the roast first. And so if you are one of those people, I have a great technique for you to try that lets you sear the roast first, and then you do something interesting while the roast is cooking. Basically, what we're going to be trying to do is keep the roast below the temperature of 122 degrees Fahrenheit, or at least the inside of the roast below that temperature for as long as possible. And we're going to do that by searing the roast first and then getting it into the oven. And then when it hits a certain temperature, we turn the oven off and it finishes cooking, staying in that great temperature where the enzymes are most likely to continue to break down the connective tissues and tenderize the meat and make sure that it is nice and juicy and tender. So first, what kind of beef roast can you use for this method? So I did tell you about doing the beef tenderloin using the reverse sear the other day. You can use a beef tenderloin for this method. You can use a prime rib for this method, although I do think the reverse sear is better for that. I'm telling you about that next week. You can also do something a little bit less expensive. And this time of year, we're heading up to Christmas. It's sometimes a good idea to try out a new method on a less expensive cut of meat and see how it works, how you like it. And then when you have your beautiful, expensive cut that you're doing for your actual big fancy dinner, then you know what you're doing. So if you're going to try something like that, or if you just want to have a less expensive beef roast today for dinner or this coming weekend for dinner, I recommend the rump roast is the next best cut to use for this. It is similar to a bottom round roast, except that it has a little bit more marbling and I find better suited to this kind of dry roasting method. The bottom round roast will work, but it does tend to have less fat. So it's a little bit on the drier side. I would prefer to use a pot roast method for that, or even a London broil kind of method. So it's really, really lightly cooked just on the outside and quite rare inside still. Or you can do an eye of round, but that is my least favorite cut for this. And I definitely recommend pot roast for that. So your best bets are the prime rib, the beef tenderloin, the rump roast, maybe the bottom round roast. Now, I really do like to do a dry brine on any kind of roast beef that I'm doing. So I do recommend that. You're going to get a half teaspoon of kosher salt per pound of meat, and you sprinkle that all over the outside. Then put it on an oven-safe rack on a pan in the refrigerator, uncovered, don't wrap it in anything, for up to 24 hours. Generally speaking, I say 4 hours is the minimum though. Then you'll take that out of the refrigerator and leave it at room temperature for 45 minutes. That's going to help it cook more evenly later. And then you just pat it dry with some paper towel. Don't rinse it or anything. Now you can season the roast if you would like to. Just don't add any salt at this point because there is enough salt going on there. You won't see it. It's kind of absorbed in, but it is there. Okay. Now you're going to heat the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And while that oven is preheating, rub the roast all over with some cooking oil, about a tablespoon per pound of meat, but you just want a nice coating all over. Then get a nice big skillet over medium-high heat until very hot. I like to do one like a big cast iron skillet, for instance, that can also go into the oven so I don't have to move anything around. So that is one way you can do it. We're going to sear this roast in the skillet and then transfer it to the oven. If you want to, it's really optional. I don't think it matters that much. You can put it onto a rack. So then if you had that oven safe rack that you used for the dry brining, then you would put that over the cast iron skillet or whatever roasting pan you're using. And then the roast goes on top of that after you've done searing it. So first, you're going to get your big skillet over medium-high heat until very hot. And then you're adding that roast and you're searing all the sides until they are golden brown. It's going to take 4 to 7 minutes per side. Okay. Now for this method, I find it really important to use a probe thermometer that you put into the roast. And then it has a little reader on the outside of the oven that you can monitor what temperature the roast is at, because we don't want to open the oven again for this method. It's kind of important. So what you're going to do is you're going to put that probe thermometer right into the middle, and then you're transferring your roast in whatever pan configuration you're doing into your 350 degree Fahrenheit oven, and you are roasting it until the the internal temperature of your meat reads 115 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, that's going to take a different amount of time depending on the size and shape of the roast. I do recommend you just keep your eye on it. But for a prime or rump roast that is 3 to 6 pounds, it's going to be 15 to 20 minutes per pound. And for a prime or rump roast that's 6 to 8 pounds, it's going to be 12 to 17 minutes per pound. For that tenderloin, a 2 to 5 pound tenderloin, it's probably going to be about 25 to 30 minutes total, not per pound, because it's so narrow. Okay, when the roast reaches 115 degrees Fahrenheit internally, you turn the oven off. Then you're watching that probe thermometer to see it get to the temperature that you want your finished roast to be, which is going to take between 5 to 12 minutes per pound to get it to the right temperature. Okay, and you're going to be taking it out several degrees lower than the desired temperature because when it rests, it's going to rise up to the temperature, okay? So like I said, it's going to be 5 to 12 minutes per pound, depending what you want your final temperature to be. You're going to be taking it out at 120 degrees Fahrenheit for rare, 130 degrees Fahrenheit for medium rare, 140 degrees Fahrenheit for medium, 145 degrees Fahrenheit for medium well, and 155 for well done. And then you're going to let it rest for as little as 15 minutes, but really as much as 30 minutes is great, especially for a bigger roast. If it's a smaller roast, 15 minutes is probably a better bet. You don't want it to cool off too much. And then you just want to make sure that that internal temperature has risen to where you want it to be for your temperature. So I'm going to read another list of temperatures to you. For rare, you want it between 124 to 128 Fahrenheit. For medium rare, you want it between 134 to 138. For medium, 144 to 148. Medium well, 149 to 153. Well done, 159 to 163. And yeah, so what happened there was we got it to 115 degrees Fahrenheit, which was below that 122, which is where the enzymes stop breaking down that connective tissue. So we turn the oven off then, and the roast cooks more slowly towards the end, so it stays under that temperature for longer. And then you take it out and rest it. And then you carve it and serve. I love doing a gravy with this, so I will be linking to my beef gravy recipe, which has a little bit of horseradish in it. So good. And yeah, mashed potatoes, roasted potatoes. You have a great dinner there. I will put the link to this classic roast beef in the show notes for this podcast episode, or you can head to cookthestory.com/ROTD and get it there. Everything there is arranged by date, so it's helpful to know that today is December 11th of 2024. I'm Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookful.com, the all-new chicken cookbook, and from this podcast, Recipe of the Day. I hope you have a great day. Let's get cooking.